So the reason I've been making such a big deal about the number two is that this is probably, well, this is hugely important. That if you're going to change between a percent and a decimal, you have to know to move the decimal point, how many places? Two. And so which we think is maybe French for two. Okay. Converting between percents and fractions. So first, a percent can be written as a fraction. And we talked about this a little bit yesterday in 8.1. Maybe it wasn't yesterday, I don't know. But a percent can be written as a fraction. So 54%. Let's say I ate 54% of the saltwater taffy my son bought, which may or may not be true. But if we wanted to write this as a fraction, we could write it as
54 over 100.
Perfect, 54 over 100. Yes? Mm-hmm. And if we were really going to be like really cool people, we'd be like, oh, 54 over 100. Both of those numbers are odd. So I can reduce this, and half of 100 is 50, and half of 54 is a little bit tougher.
24.
Close to 26?
25.
27. And then from there you can say, ooh, they're not both even. I can't reduce that. Could I divide them both by 3? I could the top, because 2 plus 7 is 9. You could divide it by 3. 5 plus 0. You can't divide by 3. Do we talk about divisibility rules? If you add together the digits, if that number is divisible by 3, the number is divisible by 3?
Yeah, we did that.
Okay, I think we did. Or if you want to check and see if they're both even, you could divide by 2. If you add the digits together, 2 plus 7 is 9. You could divide 9 by 3, right?
Yep.
So then we could divide 27 by 3. But 5 plus 0 is 5. Can you divide 5 by 3? No. What really, because this is going to be you can use your calculator. Otherwise, you could just take 54 over 100, use your fraction key, press equals. It'll reduce it for you automatically. So you could do that too. But if you practice reducing fractions in your head, makes it easier. Okay, 21%. 21% is the same as
21 over 100.
21 over 100. So for percentages, you just take whatever percent it is, put it over 100, then ask yourself, can I reduce, can I not reduce? And the 21 over 100 we can't reduce. Okay to keep going?
So you just asked yourself to reduce or not?
Yeah. If you get better at recognizing it as you get more practice. So if you change a fraction to a number over 100, the number is the percent. Is the percent. So that's just trying to write in words what we just did up above. That when we have 54%, the 54 is the percent, 54 over 100. 21 over 100, 21 would be the percent. Good? Because then we could take this bottom one and say, all right, Shazam, 37 over 100, that's what percent?
37.
37%. Yeah, because if you have a number over 100, the number's the percent, yes? Mm-hmm. And we're loving life here. All right, now 41 over 50, the percent is...
82.
Nice. I was wondering if people would say 41. I tried to be tricky. But so okay. Dude, man, he's on fire. Okay? Because he's saying if it's a number over 100, hear me out. Let's not just be throwing ourselves at his feet in math amazingness, but amazing. We need to have a number over 100, right? And then this is the percent. So Brady's saying, all right, I need a number over 100, and I'm guessing he said you take 50 and...
Oh, times it by 2.
So 50 times 2 gets you 100, right? Mm-hmm. So if you want this number, which is going to be the percent, you need to...
Do the same thing as we did to the bottom?
Exactly. Do 41 times 2, and he saw like a rock star. That's 82. So it's 82%.
How long have you been thinking about it?
No. Sometimes greatness just strikes, especially if you're a great person. So okay, but we okay on that one?
Yep.
Despite the blah. Okay. So we're good on those.
Yep.
Now the next part. This next part is something that just really should become automatic, and it's kind of like in the last chapter when I was trying to convince you if you ever see, I wouldn't write this is off track now, but if 1 inch equals 3 miles, if you ever saw a scale, first step was to say 1 inch over 3 miles. That if you know this is a first step, it made the problems all a lot easier, right? This is what's going to be true about this next section. That being able to do this automatically is kind of like that. It makes the problems a lot easier. Okay, so converting between percents and decimals. The most important number today is the number 2.
Duh.
Move the decimal. Ooh, red for dramatic emphasis. Move the decimal. How many places?
2.
2 places when switching. So if we're trying to switch between a percent and a decimal, or a decimal and a percent, we're always going to move the decimal 2 places. So 50%, there's no decimal there, because if the decimal's at the end of the number, we don't have to write it in, agreed? But if we want to make 50% a decimal, that is going to be 0.5. Or if looking at that, it's kind of like, what? You know, you could say 0.50. But the key is you always take, if you're going from a percent to a decimal, you move the decimal point 2 places. So it started out there. We move it 2 to the left to become 0.5 or 0.50. Now the direction, that's going to be kind of the, what are we doing? So let me find a different color here. Trying to find something brightish. Okay, so kind of bright. Okay, so here's the thing. If we're trying to go from a percent to a decimal, we go this way. So you go left 4% to a decimal. That's what we just had up above, 50%. What decimal is that going to be? We move that decimal point 2 jumps to the left. If we're going the other direction, if we're going from a decimal to a percent, now we have to move the decimal point to the right. So I'm going to do an arrow to the right, 4 decimal 2%. I think most people, they just figure that out as they go. They just get used to it. So I don't know if I have it memorized in my head, and that's why I wouldn't stress about that too much. I think it'll kind of work out. But 8%, decimal points, would you agree it's right there at the end of the 8?
Mm-hmm.
So if I change that to a decimal, it's going to be
0.8.
Ooh.
0.08.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yep. Because we need to go 2 jumps. 0.8 would just be 1 jump. We need to go 2. So we need to put the decimal point there. But to have it be 2 jumps, you agree we need to put a 0 in as a placeholder?
Yes.
Yep. So it's 0.08. If I have some other weird looking percent, 74.3%.
You gotta move it with 7.43.
Nice, 0.743. So don't let the decimal being in the middle confuse you, or there being 3 numbers there. You just always take and move that decimal point 2 places. So we have a 0.743. Is that okay? Now we're saying, well, we have a decimal, we have a number, and we want to write it as a percent. 0.56 is going to be 56 point, or 56. If we're changing it to a percent, it'd be 56%. Good? Almost done. So 0.03 then becomes what percent?
3%.
Nice, 3%. That once we take and move that decimal point 2 places, it ends up right there. We don't need those zeros in front anymore. It's just a 3%. And the very last one,
0.4.
0.4. It's tempting. A lot of people just, it's always the number. So they'll say it's 4%. But we need to put the decimal point right there so it becomes 0.4%. So the most important number today is the number 2. Or duh, which might be French. And that's it. Another quick comment that'll show up in some of the homework. If you get some weird fractions, so say you have something like 17 over 23, and we're trying to figure out what percent that is, you could try to change it to 100. Agreed? And solve for x, you could cross multiply, divide. So that's totally would work. But something that would be easier is, do you agree if you took a calculator, I'm going to grab one quick second, you could do 17 divided by 23 in your calculator, right?
Yeah.
Somebody beats me to it, just shout out the number. So 17 divided by 23 gives me 0.739. So 0.739. So what percent is 0.739? 73.9%. Or maybe you'd round it to 74%. But if you have a fraction that's not easy to change to something over 100, like we did there, punch it into your calculator, get a decimal, then you can just convert the decimal to a percent. Okay? Okay, cool.